Incredible rescue. Discover the heartwarming moment a hidden tiger cub was saved from the rocks. On that fateful afternoon in rural Wisconsin, the sun shone brightly over the sodden fields of the Johnson family farm. But just behind that warmth lay a story waiting to unfurl, one that would touch hearts and split a community. Little did Sarah know, as she wiped her hands on her apron and peered out the window, that her daughter Lily's adventurous spirit would lead to an encounter that changed everything. Lily, barely contained within her 8-year-old body, dashed through the mud, her laughter echoing off the trees. Charismatic and lively, she was like a beam of sunlight darting between raindrops. After a fierce storm, the world felt fresh, awakened. "Look, Mom," she squealed, waving tiny arms as if conquering a mountain, before bounding off toward the woods bordering their farm. Moments later, the joy in her eyes shifted. In her splendid escape, she stumbled upon a dark, hidden den cradled among the time-worn rocks. The sound of gentle whimpers drew her closer, a small tiger cub, forlorn and trembling, hidden in the shadows. It was a sight that struck her like lightning, a fragile life crumbling under the weight of isolation. Stamping her foot, her heart raced with urgency, and with every ounce of courage, she sprinted back home. Mom. You won't believe what I found." Lily breathed out, her tiny chest heaving. Sarah knelt to meet her daughter's wild eyes, reading layers of emotion and confusion. When Lily shared her discovery, a weight settled in the room, heavy as a storm cloud. A tiger cub? Alone? Sarah's heart cracked open at the thought, sparking a protective fervor within her. Word of the cub spread like wildfire through their small town. The community soon erupted into debate. Some saw fame and profit, eager to parade the exotic creature, while others rallied behind Sarah's instinct to rescue the small animal. Every meeting was tinged with tension, as the lines between benevolence and greed blurred. Voices clashed, and resentment simmered beneath the surface, as if the tiger cub was not only a stranger but a reflection of their own survival instincts. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just when it seemed darkness might divide them, Jack, a local veteran haunted by memories of war, stepped forward with unexpected news. "This little one, it reminds me of what I lost in combat." His voice cracked, drawing hushed murmurs from the crowd. A bond formed then, unexpectedly, a shared past illuminating the town's core values and the essence of compassion stirring in their hearts. As emotions navigated through the crowd, Sarah watched, tears prickling her eyes. Hopes for the cub swirled amidst conversations of honor, dignity, and unity. Could the town rise above its hunger for gain? With the sun dipping low, casting golden rays over conflicted faces, Sarah sensed the pulse of change. But as shadows loomed over the last whispers of hope, the question lingered: would they come together to protect the cub or allow greed to tear them apart? As the sun vanished behind the horizon, casting a twilight glow over the town, the air buzzed with a mix of hope and uncertainty. Sarah noticed a shift in her neighbors' expressions, the fire of debate still sparking, but softened now, touched by Jack's heartfelt words. The community hall, filled to the brim, felt heavy with anticipation. Sarah stood at the front, heart racing, facing the crowd. "We have a choice to make," she began, her voice steady. "We can follow our instincts for profit, or we can be a family, become the guardians this little cub deserves." Her words hung in the air, powerful like thunder rumbling before a storm. There were whispers, faint at first, brushing across the room. In the back, old Mrs. Thompson, known for her righteous stance, stood up. "That little creature is lost. Just like so many of us, she needs a home. A family." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Sarah's heart surged with cautious optimism. It only took one person to ignite the spirit of the collective, and Mrs. Thompson's voice was the spark they needed. Before they knew it, others rose, sharing their fears and hopes. Like petals opening to the sun, the emotion spread. "Look! cried out Danny, a local farmer. We talk about community, but what does that really mean? If we help this cub, we send a message to our kids about compassion. His words pierced through the fog of greed, leaving clarity in their wake. With each voice, the room grew warmer with agreement. The cub was no longer a pawn in a game, it represented resilience, survival, and hope. As the family spoke, thoughts of profit were overshadowed by a budding sense of responsibility. They began to see beyond their own desires, thinking of the little creature who depended on them. By the time the meeting wrapped up, a plan began to take form. They would create a sanctuary, a place where the cub could thrive, cared for by those who had rallied together. A reminder of the strength they held when united, as if the tiger cub was the essence that could stitch their community back together. Sarah felt buoyed by the tide of support as she stepped outside into the cool evening. The stars blossomed like diamonds scattered across a velvet curtain above them. She breathed deeply, savoring the sweet sensation of community. But as the light of hope started to shine brighter, doubts lingered like shadows. Would they get the necessary permits? Would the authorities allow such a dream to flourish, or would fear snuff it out before it ever began? Just then, her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was a message from Jack, and as she read it, her heart quickened. We need to meet. I found something out about the cub. With that, a sense of urgency bubbled to the surface. What could Jack have discovered? The future of the little cub and their plan rested on the answer to that question. She felt a ripple of determination surge through her. Would their plans hold enough weight to carry them through? As she turned back to the hall, the waiting crowd inside suddenly felt like an echo of the uncertainty that awaited them. Would they have the strength to protect what they loved? Sarah hurried down the dimly lit street towards the small diner where Jack had asked to meet. The cool breeze picked up, rustling the leaves overhead, echoing her restless thoughts. The excitement of the meeting lingered, but every step brought a wave of concern. She couldn't shake the feeling that something important hung in the balance. As she pushed through the diner's door, the familiar jingle of the bell above announced her arrival. The smell of coffee and warm pie wafted through the air, but Sarah barely noticed. Her eyes scanned the room until they landed on Jack, his brow furrowed, a fur-lined hood casting shadows across his face. He looked up and gestured her over. "Hey, thanks for coming," he said, his voice low, a hint of urgency in his tone. Sarah slid into the booth across from him, anticipation coiling tightly in her stomach. "What did you find out?" she asked, leaning closer. Jack tapped his phone screen and turned it toward her. On the display was a news article, headlined "Illegal Animal Trade on the Rise." "It's bad, Sarah. They're tracking exotic animals, and the cub might be on their radar," he explained, his eyes darting around the diner as if he feared being overheard. "If we don't act fast, she might fall into their hands." A chill ran down her spine. "What do we do?" "We can't let that happen." Panic began to swell in her chest, yet she felt the flames of determination flicker to life. Jack leaned in, urgency swelling in his voice. "We need to rally the community again. Raise awareness. We have to convince the authorities that this sanctuary isn't just a nice idea, it's essential. If they see the cub as a target, it might fuel their decision to help us. But what if they think it's too risky? What if they think we're in over our heads?" The doubts crept back in, each one a little heavier than the last. He took a deep breath, his expression softening. "You've already sparked their courage, Sarah. After tonight, they see themselves reflected in that little cub. But we need a plan, and we need people who are willing to stand with us." Determination surged through her, stronger now. She thought of Mrs. Thompson, Danny, and all the others who had stood up that evening. "Then we'll do it. We'll hold another meeting. We'll take this fight to them." As they talked through the details, Sarah felt a sense of unity creeping back into her heart. Each word they exchanged was like a thread woven into the fabric of their community's determination. But as they made their plans, a flicker of concern gnawed at her, dark and persistent. If the cub was truly in danger, they had to act quickly. "We should start tomorrow. I'll gather everyone, and we can strategize," Sarah concluded, her voice steady. Jack nodded, a spark igniting in his eyes. I'll do some digging. Try to find out who else might be involved in this trade. We need to know who we're up against. As they left the diner, the stars shone brighter than before, casting their light over the street. But somewhere in the night, a foreboding sense lingered. They had awakened a responsibility, but with it came the weight of unknown challenges. What if the authorities turned their backs on them? What if the cub was captured before they could even begin their rescue? Sarah's heart raced, fear and hope battling within her. She knew they were stepping into a storm, yet the thought of saving that cub filled her with courage. With her hand tight around her phone, she couldn't shake the feeling that the real fight was only just beginning. As they walked away, an unsettling thought flickered in her mind. What else was out there waiting for them to uncover? The next morning dawned cool and bright, the sun slicing through the early morning mist, casting rays of hope into Sarah's heart. She stood in her living room, pacing back and forth, her phone still in her hand. She had a list of names, faces she needed to reach out to in order to see the fight against the illegal animal trade ignite once more within their community. Messages flew out as she typed, her fingers dancing across the screen. Please come to the meeting tonight. We need everyone. She sent it to Danny, Mrs. Thompson, and a few other key people who had pledged their support before. Each notification echoed in her mind like a small bell ringing, urging her forward, but this time it felt different. It felt larger. As she moved to the kitchen to pour herself a cup of coffee, her thoughts raced. The cub wasn't just an animal. She recalled its face, the big curious eyes searching for warmth and safety. It represented a vulnerability that tugged at her heartstrings. They were fighting for something pure, something that shouldn't have to be rescued. In the back of her mind, worry niggled at her. What if the news Jack found was just the tip of the iceberg? She'd heard whispers about the trade before, but now it was real, more real than ever. If they lost momentum, if even one person turned against them, her stomach twisted at the thought. Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her spiral of anxiety. It was a reply. Danny was in. Count me in. Let us do this. A wave of relief washed over her. They weren't alone. A sense of urgency propelled her forward, and she quickly gathered her things, ready to head to the local community center. When she arrived, the familiar scent of wood and freshly poured paint filled the air. The room was bare, but it had served as a foundation for change in the past. As she set up chairs, her mind wandered back to the last meeting they had held. Hearts had united, and now, they needed that same energy to push them through the looming storm. People began to trickle in, whispers turning into chatter as they filled the room. Each familiar face ignited a sense of hope within her. She spotted Jack in the corner, his gaze unwavering, giving her the silent encouragement she so desperately needed. Thank you all for coming, she started, her voice steady even as her heart raced. We're here not just for a cub but for our community, our shared values. We have a chance to protect something beautiful. Her words melted into the room, hanging in the air like a clear bell tolling. As she looked around, she saw their faces filled with determination, their desire to take action palpable. There was unity in the air, but with it came a weight. She could feel it, a sense of urgency that wrapped around them tightly. Then, with confidence ringing through her chest, she revealed the plans. We will hold an awareness event this weekend. If we can come together, gather our neighbors, maybe we'll spark a movement that can't be ignored. The room erupted into conversation, ideas flying like fireworks. Each person had something to contribute, passion filling the gaps. But amid her triumph, a hollow feeling gripped Sarah as she thought of the children and families who stood against this kind of darkness daily. What would happen if they failed? Suddenly, she noticed a stranger lurking outside the door, a shadow against the afternoon light. The figure shifted, almost as if they were listening with intent. A chill washed over her. Who were they? Why were they watching? Her heart sank. This wasn't just about the cub and their community anymore. Someone else knew about their plans. Does anyone else see that? She asked, pointing toward the door. A murmur of confusion swept through the room. As she caught Jack's eye, unease settled over them both. They were already being hunted, and the stakes were far higher than just saving a little cub. What were they about to uncover? The atmosphere in the room shifted abruptly as Sarah pointed toward the door. Whispers of uncertainty clung to the air like smoke. Eyes darted towards the entrance, curious and apprehensive. Jack's brows knit together, his expression blending confusion with worry. "Who is that?" Danny asked, his voice low as he moved to stand beside Sarah. He squinted, straining his eyes to see beyond the sunlight filtering through the glass. "I don't know. They've been standing there for a while," she replied, her heart racing. The stranger was still, almost like a sentinel. What did they want? Sarah felt an urgent need to confront this mysterious figure, but fear held her back. What if they were here to sabotage everything she had fought for? The vision of the cub flashed in her mind again, the innocent eyes drawing her forward as if it were calling her to protect not only it but the very values that fueled her cause. "Should we go out there?" Jack muttered, glancing at Sarah. "No. We stay in here," she breathed, making an effort to regain her composure. "Let us not make any rash moves." It felt like the life in the room dimmed a little. She could see the uncertainty in the eyes of her friends. The hopeful discussions they had ignited were eclipsed by a looming shadow one they couldn't ignore. "Let us stay focused," Sarah said, raising her voice slightly. "We're here to plan our event, and we won't let this person distract us." The crowd hesitated but slowly nodded. She saw Danny and Mrs. Thompson whispering to each other, a plan forming among them, and that encouraged her. Still, she couldn't shake off the presence of the stranger. As the meeting went on, every idea shared felt layered with tension. They discussed flyers, speakers, ways to connect with the community. But each time she glanced toward the door, the figure was still there, a dark shape against the light. Finally, as someone mentioned a possible partnership with a local wildlife organization, Sarah's eyes darted back to the door. Except this time, the stranger was gone. She blinked, feeling a rush of relief mixed with disappointment. What if they were true allies? Or were they the opposite? Before she could voice her thoughts, a loud crash outside shattered the subtle discussions. Everyone jumped at the sound, heads turning toward the source of the noise. Silence fell over the room like a thick blanket. "I'll check it out." Danny moved towards the door, though the unease hung heavy in the air. "No." Sarah grabbed his arm. "We don't know what's out there." "Better to see than to sit here wondering," he replied gently but firmly. With a deep breath, Sarah nodded, letting him pass. Together with Jack, she stepped toward the door just in time to see Danny push it open. Outside, the sun hung bright, contrasting sharply with the tension that had enveloped them. But there was no sign of the stranger, a fleeting figure that felt like a ghost now. Then she heard the faintest whisper of something in the bushes. Her heart raced as a small, trembling form emerged. It was another cub, even younger than the one they sought to save. "Is that?" Jack breathed, stepping forward. "Call for help." Sarah shouted, barely processing the moment. There were no more distractions. They needed to act fast. But as Danny knelt down beside the trembling creature, Sarah felt a deflating panic rise within her. What if they were not equipped to handle yet another? Suddenly, from behind them, footsteps approached fast. She turned quickly, her stomach twisting. Were they being followed? Was this part of something larger? "Danny, get back!" she yelled, but he was already reaching for the cub. As chaos loomed ahead, a painful truth settled in her heart: whatever they had started might come with a price. With the sun setting behind them, experiencing helplessness fresh after their hopeful meeting, she couldn't shake the question from her mind. Were they truly ready for this fight, with darkness closing in so quickly? The scene was unfolding, and she prepared herself for whatever might emerge next. But what would they face if they failed? To protect this one as well? The unexpected footsteps grew louder, echoing in Sarah's mind like a warning bell. She turned just in time to see a figure step out from the shadows this time, a man dressed in a dark jacket and holding a sturdy net. He looked as anxious as they felt, his eyes darting between Danny, the cub, and Sarah. "What are you doing?" Sarah demanded, taking a step forward, blocking Danny's access to the cub. Her heart raced again, a swell of instinct telling her to protect the vulnerable creature. "I'm a wildlife rescuer," the man said, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "I heard rumors about a cub roaming around here all alone. It's dangerous for it to be out in the wild, especially without its mother." "Who sent you?" Jack questioned, narrowing his eyes. "I came on my own. I've been tracking signs of the mother. I thought I'd finally found her trail," he explained, glancing nervously back towards the darkened tree line. The urgency in his voice stirred something in Sarah, grounding her racing thoughts. "We need to help it," she said, looking back at Danny, who was still kneeling beside the cub. The tiny creature was shivering, eyes wide but trusting as it edged closer to Danny. "But we don't know him," Danny replied, a tinge of fear in his voice. "Do you have any experience?" Sarah asked the rescuer, her voice steadying. "Can you help?" "More than 10 years, he nodded, stepping closer to them but still cautious. "But I need you all to back away slowly. This cub is scared, and if it feels cornered, it'll run." The tension in the air was palpable. Sarah caught Jack's eye, a silent conversation passing between them. A decision had to be made. Slowly, everyone stepped back, creating a wider space around the little cub. Sarah felt her heart pounding for more reasons than one. The rescuers had come for a reason, but was it all for the good? The pressure of the moment weighed heavily on her. "Let me approach it," the rescuer said, moving down to Danny's level. "I'll gain its trust." "It's okay, little one." He spoke softly, inching forward, crouching low and gentle. The cub paused, its small body trembling, but it didn't retreat. There was an unspoken bond forming, a glimmer of hope in the atmosphere. Sarah couldn't help but hold her breath. This chaotic moment could shift either way. Maybe they had found an ally in the shadows. Just as the rescuer reached out an outstretched hand, a loud rustling broke the silence, sending all of them spinning around in alarm. It was the bushes again, more frantic this time. Whatever was hiding there was drawing closer, squeezing the warmth from Sarah's chest. "Get ready!" Danny shouted, instinctively moving between the danger and the cub. But Sarah knew that wasn't enough. Her mind raced. They weren't just witnesses to this event anymore. They were in it, up to their necks. As the rustling grew nearer, she felt an overwhelming sense of dread, the realization that they may be facing something far worse than they were prepared for. "Danny, don't!" Sarah yelled, panic vibrating through her voice. The cub whimpered, seemingly sensing the tension. Would they be able to shield it from whatever emerged from the bushes? Suddenly, just as she was about to take a step forward, the figure that stepped out from the bushes was not what anyone expected. With the glow of the setting sun casting shadows around them, Sarah could only hope that what came next would be a testament of resilience rather than an utter defeat. But what if this new presence held secrets that could unravel everything they thought they knew? The figure that emerged from the bushes was unlike anything they could have imagined. Tall and regal, with a sheen of deep orange fur and a striking pattern of black stripes, it wasn't just any animal, it was a full-grown tiger. The sight sent a shudder through Sarah's body. Her heart raced, not merely in fear, but in a desperate bid to understand the reality collapsing around her. "Back! Everyone back!" The rescuer shouted, lunging forward to shield the cub, his hands still instinctively raised as if they could de-escalate the situation. The tiger's imposing presence was magnetic, its breath visible as it stood a few paces away, sizing them all up with piercing yellow eyes. Danny's fingers curled tightly around the little cub, pulling it closer to his chest. "What do we do?" he stammered, his voice barely a whisper. Sarah struggled to form words, caught between terror and an unexpected fascination. For a moment, the world around them faded. It was just them, the tiger, and the small creature tucked under Danny's arm, a life amid the chaos. "Don't let it see you panic. If it feels threatened," the rescuer began, his voice tense but calm. Sarah could barely listen, feeling an electric current of fear snapping through the air. The tiger stepped forward, each powerful paw making soft thuds against the ground. Her breath caught in her throat. At that moment, a plan and instinct swelled inside Sarah. Danny, hold the cub close and don't make any sudden movements, she urged, inching backwards as she spoke in low tones. She looked at the rescuer, who was now crouched low, his eyes locked on the tiger. What do we do? How do we get out of this? Stay calm, he whispered. Tigers only attack when they feel cornered or threatened. If we can give it space. As if responding to the tension, the tiger emitted a low growl, a rumbling sound that reverberated through the air. It flexed its muscles, showing off the raw strength that lay beneath its sleek coat, and Sarah's heart seemed to stall. Yet in the face of this overwhelming power, the wildness in her didn't wane, it ignited an unyielding determination. We can't leave the cub here, she blurted out, her voice trembling but resolute. If we do, it'll be hurt. The rescuer nodded slowly, understanding them both. All right, let us try to get both of them out of here. We work together. On three, Sarah said, glancing at Danny, whose eyes were wide and brimming with courage. 1, 2. As they moved in unison, cautious yet mightily driven by purpose, the unthinkable happened. In a moment of connection that caught everyone off guard, the tiger halted, its gaze shifting from them to the small cub nestled in Danny's grasp. The air felt electric as the tension thickened, almost tangible. The tiger, seemingly intrigued, stepped closer, narrowing the distance. Danny's grip tightened on the cub, a mix of fear and hope swirling in his eyes. Would this creature see the cub as a threat or something else? With a flick of its tail, the tiger took a step back, almost as if it understood. An unspoken bond seemed to weave between the wild and the domestic, between the fierce protector and the defenseless little life before them. But then, another growl echoed through the trees, stronger and more demanding. Sarah turned sharply to the sound. Was there more to this story than they realized? What dangers lurked nearby, and how had this tiger come to be here? As they positioned themselves, ready to act, the shadows deepened, and the golden light of the sun faded, blocking their path. They were caught in an unexpected web of wild nature, and Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was just the beginning of something much larger. What other secrets would emerge from the shadows? The moment hung in the air like a charged storm cloud. Sarah's feet felt rooted to the ground as she searched the thick foliage for the source of the growl. The world shifted around her, and she was hyper-aware of every breath she took, every movement of the creatures nearby. Stay alert. The rescuer whispered urgently, eyes darting to the shifting shadows beyond the tree line. The air was heavy with anticipation. Those onlookers who had dared to venture close enough to witness the encounter were now murmuring anxiously among themselves, their faces drawn tight with a mix of fear and wonder. Danny's grip on the cub was taut. What if there's more than one? He breathed, his voice laced with uncertainty. In that moment, Sarah felt the weight of his fear, the vulnerability in his stance. We can't think like that. We need to focus on getting this cub to safety. Sarah's voice was steadier than she felt inside. She glanced at the rescuer, whose calm demeanor gave her courage. What's our next move? He glanced back at her, determination glinting in his eyes. We'll create a barrier. Move slowly. And remember, the tiger isn't the only one with instincts. Trust your gut. The growl echoed again, more insistent this time, and the tension escalated. The harsh edges of panic began to creep into Sarah's thoughts. How did they end up here? Just hours ago, they were hiking happily, taking in the sights, completely unaware of the wild wonders lurking beneath the surface. Their positions shifted as they set their plan in motion. Each step was calculated, a careful choreography of retreating while trying to shield the cub. The tiger watched, a predator caught in a silent standoff. Its rich orange fur stood out vividly against the greens and browns of the forest, every stripe a stark reminder of the power it possessed. On my count, the rescuer said, moving with deliberate purpose. 1, 2, 3. They began to inch backward, side by side, forming a protective line, eyes fixed on the tiger who seemed equally poised for a response. Sarah felt a rush of adrenaline as the distance increased. For a heartbeat, she thought they might just make it. Suddenly, another rustle erupted from the bushes on the opposite side. Heart racing, Sarah swung her gaze in that direction. A shadow flitted through the trees, and she caught a glimpse of another animal, this one smaller, more slender. It wasn't just instinct that told her this creature was related to the larger tiger, it was the way it moved, the urgency in its steps. "Look!" she exclaimed, pointing. "There's another one." Danny's eyes widened with realization. "Is it?" "It's a cub." The words tumbled from Sarah's lips, filled with awe and disbelief. The tiger's posture shifted, suddenly, the fierce guardian demeanor softened. It took a tentative step forward, its gaze now alternating between the cub in Danny's arms and the one approaching from the brush. Sarah's heart sank a little. What could this mean? Was there more danger ahead? The memory of the growling sounds echoed again, but now a different feeling rose in the air, a sign of desperation mingled with hope. The tiger seemed torn. Was it protecting the cub out of instinct, or something deeper? Then, from the thicket, the tiny cub emerged, trembling on unsteady legs and calling out with a small, plaintive cry. The rescue team stiffened. Would the tiger see them as threats to its young? "Stay still," the rescuer warned, tension crackling as they watched the unfolding drama. Sarah's thoughts raced. Had they put themselves in even greater danger? Would the tiger now charge, fueled by maternal instinct or fright? The world narrowed around them, holding its breath, as the tiger moved cautiously forward, its golden eyes wide and mystical. What would happen next? Would a bond be formed, or would chaos erupt? The cub stumbled forward, its soft cries echoing in the tense space between the trees. The growl that had held them captive moments before softened into a series of gentle chuffs, a sound of tentative recognition, a plea for understanding. The tiger's eyes locked onto the little creature, and there was a flicker of something deeper in its gaze, love, desperation, a yearning. "Stay calm," the rescuer urged, shifting slightly to give a better view of the unfolding scene. Every muscle in Sarah's body tightened. She could feel the heartbeat in her throat, pounding violently in rhythm with the mounting pressure of the moment. Danny, still clutching the cub wrapped in his arms, took a cautious step back, as if he could somehow reassure both of them. "It's okay, girl," he whispered, addressing the nearest cub as if it could understand his words. "You're safe now." The approaching cub paused, looking back at its mother. The air thickened with a potent mix of fear and hope, and Sarah couldn't help but silently plead with the universe. Just let this be a moment of connection, a reunion without violence. To her surprise, instead of charging, the tiger sank into a low crouch, its body language shifting from dominance to vulnerability. Its eyes softened, pupils dilating as it focused on the newly arrived cub. The silence was oppressive, her breath coming more quickly as she tried to process the miraculous transformation. I think it wants to see its baby," she murmured, blinking back the tears that threatened to spill over. Nobody moved. Time seemed suspended, as if the forest itself was holding its breath, waiting for the outcome. The smaller cub, full of life but unsteady, took a bold step forward, the sounds of the jungle fading into the background. It let out another plaintive call, and a moment later, the adult tiger responded, the deep timbre of its chuff reverberating through the clearing like an echo of bygone eras. Sarah's heart swelled as the big cat took that final, gentle step toward the waiting cub. They met halfway, and the scene unfolded like something from a dream. The adult lowered its great head, nuzzling the smaller one and curling around it protectively. It was a picture of pure instinct, protection, love, a bond that went beyond human comprehension. "Look at that, they're together," Danny quietly gasped, awe spilling from his tone. But the magic of that moment splintered into tension when a loud crack pierced the silence. A branch snapped somewhere in the woods, a reminder of their fragile presence. The tiger's head snapped up, the soft glow of parental affection replaced by the hard edge of instinct. "Everyone, stay still," the rescuer warned again, voice firm but hoarse with urgency. The tiger's body tensed, its muscles coiling like springs, ready to respond to whatever threat lay beyond their fleeting moment of peace. "Will it attack us?" Sarah's voice trembled. Each second felt like an eternity as the reality of the situation sank in. A mother defending her young at all costs. The air shifted, and the spectators behind them drew a collective breath, anticipating the fickle nature of wild instincts mixed with the tenderness they had just witnessed. Relief huddled against fear in Sarah's chest. It was a clash of life's raw essence, beautiful and terrifying. As if sensing the unspoken tension, the tiger huffed softly, glancing back at the baby. It flicked its tail, shifting between caution and curiosity, the tension building once again. What would it choose? Would it defend its territory or trust in the ability to nurture? In that fleeting moment, another crack rang out through the trees, this one louder, closer. The tiger's eyes flared wide, and Sarah's heart plummeted. "Here we go," she whispered, bracing herself for what might come next. The noise that erupted from the thicket was no longer just a crack of a branch, it was human. Feet crunching on twigs, rustling leaves. A group of men emerged, their faces hardened with intent. Sarah's stomach dropped, they bore nothing but determination and a glint in their eyes. They wore jeans and rugged jackets, carrying nets and crates. "Get back, all of you!" The lead man barked, eyes locked onto the tiger, his voice oozing authority. Her heart raced. "What are they doing?" she gasped, turning to the rescuer. His expression had darkened, fear flashing across his face. "They're here for the cub. They must be the poachers." "No!" Danny yelled in outrage, instinctively stepping forward, still holding tight to the smaller cub. Sarah's heart sank, torn by fear and a fierce desire to protect. "Danny, no!" Sarah cried, tugging at his arm. The tiger, now fully alert, growled deeply, the sound vibrating through the air, resonating with the primal need to protect. In that moment, everything hung in the balance. The poachers were closing in, looking at the tiger and the cub like a hunter assessing its prey. "We have to keep them away from each other," Sarah hissed to the rescuer. The tension snapped like a fragile twig, and he nodded. "Form a barrier," he instructed, gesturing for Sarah and Danny to stand guard while he crouched low, trying to remain unnoticed. The tiger flanked them, a mighty guardian against the approaching threat, muscles taut and ready to defend. "Hey, you all get the hell out of here. This is protected land," one of the poachers shouted, inching closer, and the tiger responded with a low snarl that reverberated through the clearing, sending chills up Sarah's spine. "Call for help," she urged, glancing at Danny, who was still frozen by disbelief. With fleeting seconds to act, Sarah whipped out her phone. Fingers shaking, she dialed 911. "Please, we need animal control and police. There are poachers trying to capture a mother tiger and her cub near Johnson's farm," she cried, adrenaline surging through her veins. The seconds ticked by, feeling like hours as she pleaded down the line. Just as she hung up, the chaos escalated. The poachers had become restless, moving closer. "They want to listen to you," one of them snickered. "Focus on the tiger," Sarah urged the rescuer. "Use your training." The man nodded, adjusting his grip on the net, looking between the wildcat and the approaching men, calculating. "Don't move. If we show fear, it'll only escalate." The tiger shifted, eyes darting between the cub and the men. It was a calculated risk. A glitch in the unfolding drama. "Ladies and gentlemen," the lead poacher called smugly. "You think you can shield that little creature? Give it to us, and we'll spare its mother. Let us not complicate this." "Never." Sarah's voice rang out, full of conviction drowned in a tide of fear. A voice pulled from the core of her being. The tiger sensed their resolve too. It pushed forward, ground trembling beneath its weight, its body tense with aggression and defiance. Then, without warning, the rescue team burst into a coordinated response, the rescuer moving towards the tiger, shouting commands in low tones. "Stay with me. We'll protect each other." "What's happening?" One of the poachers grunted, edging toward the tiger with malicious intent. "Stay back," Danny shouted, clutching the smaller cub. As tension boiled over, Sarah could feel the air thickening, a storm gathering its strength. The voice of authority shattered through the trees. Officers from animal control and law enforcement burst onto the scene, shattering the poachers' attempts to seize control. "Stop right there. You're surrounded." The suddenness sent the poachers reeling. They glanced at each other, panic coursing through their ranks. "What How did they? But the startled realization shifted quickly to fury. Retreat! The lead man yelled, but his command was lost amid a flurry of activity. The officers clambered forward with radios crackling, attention entirely on the tiger and her cub. The sight of the protective pair melted the atmosphere. Compassion fought against fear. In a swift turn, the poachers took off, abandoning their plans of capture. Relief surged through Sarah's chest. "They're fleeing," she gasped, scarcely believing the scene. The tiger, still poised and alert, seemed to sense that her family was safe, the tumult around them fading. And then a miraculous change took over. The big cat lowered her majestic head and gently nuzzled the little cub, a reunion bathed in tenderness. People rushed forward, their voices a mix of awe and elation. The tension snapped as the protective bubble enveloped them. Sarah wiped her tears, her heart swelling with triumph and relief at the collective bravery and love. Even as challenges loom larger than life, Sarah knew that each heartbeat resonated with resilience. The small cub was safe, and somehow amidst all the chaos, the truth resounded louder than fear. Community breathed strength. Amidst the chatter of joy and healing, Sarah turned to the rescuer with gratitude shining in her eyes. "Thank you for your courage. You showed us what it means to fight for what matters most." His smile glimmered through the shadows as he crouched, sharing in the emotional reunion of the tiger family. As sirens echoed through the night, and with bird song vibrating through the trees, victory wouldn't lie in the absence of hardship, it would reside within hearts brave enough to mend what had been broken. Sarah glanced at the crowd, every face glowing with hope, and felt the weight of countless moments converge. They built a sanctuary together that day, not just for a tiger, but for everyone to remember that love and unity wrap around even the wildest of hearts. And as compassion fused their spirits, Sarah closed her eyes, feeling the weight of community band sweetly together. She knew with an overwhelming certainty this was a fresh beginning. But as the night stretched on, she wondered, could they nurture this bond further? Their journey was just starting, and their hearts yearned to protect not just the innocent but the wild music of their shared dreams, forever singing for change. Now, don't wait even one more second. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Hit that like button to feed the algorithm. Let's grow together. Comment below with your thoughts and emotions about this heart-pounding conclusion, and share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Only true fans understand how vital your support is for our journey.